Kevin Patullo, John, I don't think he's doing a very good job at getting.
What do you mean? What about the shovel pass to Dallas Goedert?
Oh
How
my
creative
God,
is that? How creative is that?
It's the
Oh
second
my
time they use that. Is that the new thing? They're going to use that thing
Yes,
now?
it's beautiful.
Let's go to our main man, John McMullen, who's going to join us right here on the JAKIB Postgame Show. Maybe bring some reason to the conversation here. John, do we got you, brother?
Yeah, you guys got me?
Yep, I got you. John, your thoughts, man, immediately, 34-17. John, I was super upset on the postgame show tonight, not because they lost the football game, John. I think you lose football games in the NFL. I know that's just what happens. But the team showed a real lack of effort and desire out there, John, so much to the point where the broadcast called it out with 6 minutes to go that the Eagles had given up. Your first thoughts, John, just on the 34-7 beatdown that Jackson Dart, Brian Dable, and Cam Scatterbo just delivered on the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, I don't know about the voice of reason, because to me this is an ugly loss. I mean, this is one where I didn't see a lot of paths for the New York Giants to win the football game. And they didn't win the football game. They dominated the football game, especially in the second half. And they out-physicaled the Philadelphia Eagles, which is typically something that the Eagles have done over this run, where they played tremendous football. So they got out physical. They're giving up big plays to rookies who struggled to a certain degree. And, with Scatterbo, particularly, he just, if it was blocked for 1 yard, he was going to get 2. If it was blocked for 3, he was going to get 4. He was going forward the entire game. I thought he took it to him. And obviously Jackson Dart, Vic Fangio talked all week about, it's a short week, but he talked about his ability to extend plays, his ability with his legs, and the Eagles just didn't handle it well. And, this team has been tremendously healthy through this run. We always talk about it, and health. And, you look at teams around the league and how many injuries they have. I don't want to hear about it. All right, you didn't have Jalen Carter. You lose Quinyon Mitchell in the game. These are big-time players. I'm not arguing that. But this happens to everybody. As we said, the Giants have to play the rest of their season without Malik Neighbors. Well, he might be their best football player. And they went out and they dominated. So you got to be able to persevere better in those types of situations. And maybe they're just not used to it because they've been so healthy. There's not a lot to take out of this game. It's ironically, the offense was a little bit better from what it has been. But the bottom line is, this is 6 games in the season. And this is one of their best offensive performances from a yardage standpoint, from a net yardage standpoint. But it's the 6th straight game they were outgained by the opponent. That's not good. That's not a good trend. So I think a lot of this loss is on the defense. I don't think they played well against players they should have taken advantage of. I think the offense was a little bit better. But then you see when you're behind and you start pressing, and, I believe it's 305 attempts Jalen Hurts ended at without an interception, which is top 10 all time in the NFL. But when you're behind, you start to press, throws an out pattern that's too far inside. You have an interception, should have been a pick 6, Saquon. I don't know about the effort part of it. I mean, Dan played. I don't like questioning people's efforts. I don't like doing that. Like Saquon's chasing a guy down 68 yards down the field. That to me screams effort. So I don't want to say they gave up or there was no lack of effort. I think they just got outplayed, bottom line.
How about this, John? For me, you mentioned something about the injuries, because I was telling Zander this. Hey, the Bucs last week went up to Seattle without Mike Evans and without Luke Gedeke, without Cody Mock, without Bucky Irvin. They end up winning a football game up there, and they brought it home, and they're now 4-1 heading into this weekend. As you said, man, the war of attrition is part of this whole concept here. But when you watch and you saw what, Saquon Barkley did tonight, And I get it. No Landon Dickerson in the middle of the offensive line. But, John, this is another game where he's under 60 yards rushing. They went to 12 carries in the last 2 games. Saquon Barkley has 18 carries. I mean, I don't know what has happened to the run game. Landon is that much of an issue where they're not going to run the ball and continue to run the football. I watched the center too. John, I got to tell you, Cam Jurgens is not right. There is something wrong with that guy. Now, look, I get it. You're talking Dexter Lawrence on him. A couple weeks ago, another tough one in Vita Vea. Those are the 2 best interior tackles that you could possibly play your entire career against. I get it. But, boy, I'll tell you, the middle of that line is getting worked.
Yeah, and Brett Toth had a little bit, and Jordan Mailata was kind of depressed about his performance as well, which is, obviously they got caught with a couple games with Brian Burns where they ran a couple stunts, but they actually got better, I think, at pass protection in the second half, although it didn't show up. They started really hot in the run game. The 2 first plays were running plays for 31 yards to Saquon Barkley. So, if anything, that was probably his best rushing game of the season. I do think offensively they actually showed some things. There weren't as many 3-and-outs. They continued to play well in the red zone until the interception.
John,
Goddard had a big game. They had another deep shot that was there. They didn't connect on, so it could have been even better. I thought they actually showed some life offensively, but defensively it was a mess. It was a mess against a team that, to be blunt, is not that talented.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can look at last week with Denver and Cortland Sutton and J.K. Dobbins and the season he's having. You could look at next week and Justin Jefferson and Jordan Mason and TJ Hawkinson. I mean, everybody's got better skill position players than the skill position players they couldn't stop today. So, again, Jalen Carter, it's not a serious injury. He was on the field before the game. It's not going to cost him half the season or anything like that. I think he'll be back after this mini bye. So, that'll fix a lot of things. That'll calm down a lot of things. But to Dan's point about Tampa Bay, everybody deals with these. You got to persevere better. You have to.
John, how much of this you put on Howie Roseman, man? That team of offseason, boy, we talked about it a long time. And now you talk about persevering when you lose people. This team doesn't have depth, John. This team doesn't have good players. This team is – the team of offseason is biting this team in the ass. We're talking about the number 1 graded cornerback in football right now was on this roster. He got paid $7 or $8 million. We wanted to put Keely Ringo into the fire. He can't cover the Giants wide receiver 5. How much of this is on Howie?
Well, anytime you miss evaluations, and, the Eagles' evaluation was that Isaiah Rodgers was a good backup corner, and they didn't want to pay him like a starter, and they thought Keely Ringo had a better upside. So, I think it's fair to say that that's probably a wrong evaluation. And he's had those in the past. Every GM does. He had it last year with Bryce Huff. Scheme, all of a sudden Bryce Huff has 3 sacks already in San Francisco, playing in a different type of defensive system. So everything factors into it. But, this team picked Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. That's the most egregious of all. They're not perfect. They've never been perfect, but they generally get more right than they get wrong. But when you see, forget about Isaiah Rodgers, when you see Quinyon Mitchell leave the game, and that's a difficult circumstance when you lose your cornerback 1 in game. But again, the downtick to Keely Ringo and Adoree Jackson.
Dramatic.
It's just not good. And you're looking at guys. Remember, not only is Neighbors not there, Darius Slayton isn't there, and the Giants were playing guys who haven't played this season. When you talk about Humphrey and you talk about Hyatt, other than Wan'Dale Robinson, who had a big game, and he typically plays and is a pretty good player, but again, he's a wide receiver 3, and you're having such difficulty. Cam Scatterbo, again, physical, tremendous game, but he's not explosive. That's a guy you should be able to handle. And then Jackson Dart, we talked a lot about. Brian Daboll's arguing to get him. By the way, can I go on a tangent for a second? How absurd is the NFL's concussion protocol? I'm so sick of this thing. If you're like their center's ruled out, yeah, he's done. He's done. The quarterback, it's like he's arguing on the sidelines with doctors. The league has got to button that up. But even so, if Russell Wilson's got to close this game, the Eagles probably still aren't winning.
I'll tell you this, John. The head coach of a football team screaming at a neurologist like that, if the league doesn't do something about it, like you said, that will be front and center that your concussion protocol has no merit to it. Now, I do want to ask you one question on this here, John. Lane and Carter, if you're Nick and you're the Eagles, do you sit those guys for the Minnesota game?
Landon, you meant
Landon and Jalen Carter.
No, I think Jalen Carter will be back. Landon, I was told it could be 2 games, so he might miss it. And Landon is more iffy. He might play. Jalen, I expect to play. Jalen was very close to playing this week, and I think if it wasn't MetLife Stadium, he might have played, to be honest, if it were Lincoln Financial Field. Everybody's freaked out by the turf here, and he didn't want to push it. So I think he'll be back for Minnesota. Landon's more up in the air.
John, 2 big throws tonight for Jalen Hurts. I thought one of them in the second half was truly the turning point of the second half, where you were down 3 at the time. You had an opportunity to get an 89-yard touchdown to Devontae Smith on a busted coverage. He was running wide open. Jalen Hurts overshot him. Kind of a 14-point swing there because it could have been an Eagles touchdown. And then the Giants come back and score and take a 10-point lead there. And then the interception, John, obviously down in the red zone, was a costly one as well. Your thoughts on Jalen Hurts tonight, those 2 plays, and how big of an impact that had on the football game?
Well, yeah, anytime you miss a big play like last week's. Now, somebody joked, I don't know if they were telling the series that Devontae slowed down a little bit, but I don't know if he did or he didn't. He probably just
they were
as he turned his head, maybe slowed down a tick, but they were just off. And deep balls are hard to hit in this league at times, but when it's that wide open, I think it goes to the quarterback to, you don't need, when you're that wide open, you don't need a perfect throw. You just got to make sure you put enough air under it that no matter what, the receiver's going to be able to run under it. So I put that one more on Jalen, and obviously the interception, which Jalen took. I mean, that was just inside. You're throwing it out on the inside shoulder. That's got disaster written all over it. But I mean, the guy's thrown 305 passes without an interception. It was going to happen at some point, and it happened, unfortunately, in a really bad situation. Obviously, they've been very good in the red zone up until that point. But when you play with fire all the time, and this is a point where you're behind. So we talked about part of the great ball security is the ability to be risk averse. And when you're behind, you don't have the security to be so risk averse. You have to start pushing things. And when you start pushing things, it's more likely you're going to have a turnover or 2.
John, do you think what's the message coming out of this week that Nick's going to have heading into this so-called mini bye here? What do you think that message will be going into the Minnesota week?
I already talked about it. I mean, adversity, handling adversity, accountability. You got to be honest with yourself. A lot of the same things you typically hear from Nick Sirianni. They definitely have to be honest with themselves. Again, it's sort of counterintuitive. I saw some positive signs. Nobody wanted to talk about it because everybody's disappointed with the loss, but I actually saw some positive signs from the offense in this game. I did. Saquon running the football early. I thought Jalen played a very good game for about 2.5 quarters until the Devontae missed throw. I think, Dan mentioned Dallas Goedert. That Dallas Goedert dominated in this game. AJ made the great sort of one-handed catch, sort of typical AJ that we think of, that we haven't seen enough of this year. And Devontae Smith continued to be solid. So I think there was some positives on offense. Defensively, I thought it was pretty much a disaster, especially considering the opponent. And then special teams, which had been great all year. Tank Bigsby dropped another kickoff. And Nick was so upset, they benched him.
I know.
And then A.J. Dillon comes in and he screws up a kickoff. And then A.J. Dillon also fumbled on top of it.
Yep.
So I thought special teams was a disaster. Defense was a disaster. I actually, if people look under, and they don't want to look under the onion, peel it back, the offense showed some positive signs, I think.
I know that, John, they showed some positive signs, but they're nowhere near there yet, dude. Even Lane Johnson after the game is speaking. He's like, we are way too predictable. I mean, you heard that from several offensive players tonight.
But Zander, I'm going to say this to you. You're right, because it's still what John said. It's still 2 quarters of football. It's not 3 quarters of football. The problem still lies in the run game here, John. The passing game could pick up, but what made them a dominant team like they had in the Super Bowl was that people were threatened by that run game. It's getting to a point now, John, where teams are coming in now. They're loading the box up, and they're not threatened by that run game anymore. And I think the last 2 games, they'd rather have the Eagles throw the football around the yard. As long as that run game doesn't get going, Eagles aren't going to beat them, including teams like the Giants, like you said. John, there were guys out there that were elevated from the practice squad the day before to play in that game. I mean, some of those guys were practice squad guys.
Yeah, obviously the run game when you compare it to last year, but I mean, Zander just talked about Lane saying they're predictable. They are predictable, but Saquon said, do you think we were predictable last year? Because they were. They were very predictable.
They were dominant last
year. And it didn't matter.
Right.
That's the whole point. I always bring that up with Dan and the Cowboys and the Jimmy Johnson. Look, if you're better,
yeah,
you could be as predictable as you want.
Are we better though, John? You've been telling me, hey, maybe we're not that team. Maybe we're not.
No, they haven't played like that team. They haven't played like that team.
John, it is 20 quarters now. There's only 11 of these left now. You know what I mean?
No, well, they haven't. They definitely haven't played like that team, and maybe they have to shift gears. But if they have to shift gears, you're going to see a lot of what is going on today.
Yeah,
and that was trying to come back. And how do you try to come back in this league? You try to throw the football, and sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's bad. When you're trying to come back from these types of deficits. And you saw the first interception in 305 passes in the regular season from Jalen Hurts. And I bet you wouldn't have seen that if they were up 10 instead of down 10.
Right. I don't know if they were ever going to be up 10 in that game the way the Giants were playing. Man, they were playing hungry in that football game.
So either.
There's no doubt about it there. John, I've noticed something in the last couple of weeks. You tell me if it's an overreaction. It seems that there is a way to beat the Philadelphia Eagles now, and people are picking up on it. Don't try and play a different game, John. Take their game and shove it right back in their face. Jackson Dart was 17 of 25 tonight for 190 passing yards, and he had 60 quarterback rushing yards on like, I don't know, 10 carries or something. Sound like a Jalen Hurts stat line. Cam Scadaboo's running into our guys like that, like he doesn't give a shit how big, how strong, how tall they are. He's running right through them. They played our brand of football, John, and they did it better than us, more physical than us. They blew us off the ball, and they flat out just beat us to a pulp, playing our own game. You know, last year it was ugly, John, but we were never the less physical team. The Giants were a far more physical team than us tonight.
Well, I thought that was really one guy. I mean, let's be honest.
I don't know, dude. Jackson Dart was diving into dudes.
Yeah, but he also got a concussion, but I digress.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, Cam was legitimately out physicaling people. I don't think Jackson Dart was out physicaling anybody, but he did a nice job. He did a phenomenal job. He's very mobile. He extended plays beautifully. But I don't think he out physical people. I think Cam Scadaboo just he was like old school Mike Allstott.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I think that's true with him. And again, I think that has more to do with the defense and maybe that nastiness that Jalen Carter possesses that people like some weeks and dislike other weeks, depending on how many penalties he gets. Maybe they missed that a little bit more than they expected because, there are other guys. If you think about them up front, Moro Jomo's undersized for his position. Jalix Hunt is undersized for his position. We talk about this a lot. Will it come back to bite the Eagles? Well, today it did.
Yeah.
It hasn't long term. Nolan Smith is injured, but he's the one undersized guy who sort of plays physically, like he's bigger than he is. All the other guys play like they're undersized. And I think you saw some of that today. And, we talk about how great Zach Baun and Jihad Campbell are. I got to rewatch the game, obviously, but I don't think Jihad Campbell had a good game, just first watch.
Nor did Baun.
Yeah, Zach got ran over by Scadaboo at one point, and that's what I'm saying. I mean,
Jackson Dart also put his foot in the ground and ran right around him on the first touchdown run.
I think they were surprised by his. I asked Cooper DeJean, and he said no. But I think they were surprised by how athletic Jackson Dart was.
Very mobile, very mobile.
Yeah. I think that sort of shocked them a little bit. They didn't expect. They knew he could run it, but they didn't think he could run it like he ran it.
John, last question for me, brother. I think I have an idea how you're going to answer it based on your offensive conversation, but I'll ask it anyway. Kevin Patullo, John, I don't think he's doing a very good job at getting.
What do you mean? What about the shovel pass to Dallas Goedert? How creative is that? How creative is that?
It's the second time they use that. Is that the new thing? They're going to use that thing
yes,
now?
It's beautiful.
Well, what about, John? You're down 10. Russell Wilson comes in and gives you a shot of life because he can't convert a third down. They get the ball back, and they're inside their own 10. They're down by 10 points. He runs the same running play into the same guy 2 times. They lose 2 yards, and then Jalen Hurts checks down to Saquon Barkley. They go 3 and out. I mean, I'm not seeing the situational play calling and the situational, advantage that the Eagles offense is getting from the play caller. Hey, maybe I'm off base, John. Maybe you think I'm nuts. Maybe it has nothing to do with Patullo. I think it has something to do with the play caller. What do you make of it?
Well, when they were, when they're backed up, that to me, I mean, they're going to be very risk averse, and they were backed up, and the runs didn't work, and the game was still close at that point, or close enough at that point to where they didn't feel the urgency yet. So, I mean, that's, that to me is more about you need to those runs have to, instead of 2nd and 9, it's got to be it's got to be 2nd and 5. It's got to be
John,
3rd and
that's where
2.
it is right there, John. They didn't win 1st and 2nd down, and that
Yeah.
kind of threw off I thought the play calling and the situational play calling a little bit because they were 3rd and long.
Yeah.
The majority of the football game.
Well, that is. I mean, they're
look at the 3rd down conversion, John. They were 1 and 9.
Yeah, they were 1 and 9, and the Giants were 11 of 16.
Insane.
There's your game. There's your game right there.
Yep.
And if you look at all the Giants' 3rd downs, there's a bunch of 3rd and 1s, and 3rd and 2s. It's not rocket science. When you're 1 of 9, you're generally in 3rd and long. You're not. Believe me, if the Eagles are 3rd and 1, they're converting because they're going to run 4 consecutive tush pushes. So that they're not in a situation, and it's disappointing because the first 2 runs were 18 yards and 13 yards, and you say, all right, maybe they got the running game going, and then it's just swallowed up again. And they haven't, and yeah, that's the biggest. That's the only difference between the Eagles this year and last year. Last year they had the historic running game, and a passing game that would be there some weeks and not be there other weeks. And this year they have a passing game the same way. Some weeks it's there, some weeks it isn't, and then the running game hasn't been there any week. That's the difference between this year's team and last year's team.
That's right. Barkley.
Well, I mean, at what point do you look, John, and just say, "Hey, we don't have that O-line anymore, guys. It's a thing of the past. We got to evolve." Like I don't know. I get it. They think it works. I understand, but I don't think that O-line's ever coming back, John. I don't think the 24 O-line exists anymore. I don't think that version of Cam Jurgens is coming back. I don't know.
Then people got to come to the. But remember, they haven't even run the ball the past 2 weeks. They ran it 9 times against Denver. Today, they ran it 20 times, and they threw it 33 times. Not as egregious as the balance last week, but again, you're seeing heavy pass games and no run games, and you're seeing the impact. This team hasn't lost 2 consecutive games since weeks 17 and 18 in 2023. Well, all of a sudden they start passing the ball and they lose 2 consecutive games. They're not going to win games consistently throwing the football.
No way.
They're just not. They're not built that way.
Well, could be a tough one. We'll see how it shakes out. Johnny Mac, your final thoughts, brother. We'll catch you in the morning.
Yeah, very disappointing performance. This is the first time they've lost to a poor football team in a very long time. Because I don't think in the weeks coming up you're going to say, "Oh boy, the New York Giants turned a corner." I don't think you're going to see that. And I think as the weeks go on, you're going to see them continue to lose a lot of games and say, "Boy, that was a bad loss. This was a bad loss."
No doubt. Johnny Mac, good stuff, man. Thanks for doing it. We'll talk to you in the morning. All right, brother?
Thank you, John.
Thanks, guys.